everybody. I'm Jeff Finkel, CEO of the Arcview Group, and I'm really excited to welcome you to our second New Jersey Town Hall to discuss the business dynamics of the cannabis industry in the Garden State. The state that brought us the great Bruce Springsteen, John Bon Jovi, and why not? Let's throw in Frank Sinatra and Frankie Valli for good measure. I also might add, Arcview's founder, Troy Dayton, is also from the Garden State, and I'm told that Troy can sing pretty well too, although personally I'd probably rather listen to Springsteen. All right, this is our 10th town hall. We've programmed New Jersey, Colorado, New York, Oklahoma, Arizona, Michigan, Mass, and Illinois, and now New Jersey, number 2. Although, as I count that, I think that's only 9. So I think I'm missing one. Maybe Laura or Erica can think of the one I'm missing and put it in the chat. But you might ask, why are we covering New Jersey again when there are 37 licensed states? And that's simple. New Jersey's program is moving forward and moving fast. A short 13 months after the passing of the referendum and 4 short months after the rules were established, New Jersey will be releasing their form of cultivation and processing application next week, with other types to follow in the next few months. So let's all pay attention to the Garden State. All right, back to town halls. As I've said before, the reason I love our town hall programming is that the content is perfectly on point and very useful for local operators, investors, business hopefuls in the region of focus. Not exactly hyper-local, but clearly local. We get very, very strong positive audience feedback about the town hall format. And I'm excited about today's program. We have great panelists, and I think you're going to really enjoy it. But before we start, let me introduce you or reintroduce you, as the case may be, to the Arcview Group, which has evolved quite a bit over the last 2 years, as has our whole industry, and I'm sure many of you are viewers. The Arcview Group is a financial services firm that operates 3 subsidiaries serving the cannabis, psychedelics, and industrial hemp industries. Arcview Capital, our FINRA licensed broker-dealer, which provides investment banking service and is soon to launch their crowdfunding offering. Arcview Ventures, our principal investing group and operator of the Arcview Collective Fund, a uniquely member-managed venture capital fund with 78 active limited partner members. And Arcview Management Consulting, our consulting group offering cannabis license pursuit and growth management services. We also operate the WIN program, the Women's Inclusion Network, which provides a platform for women in the industry to network, collaborate, and support each other in participating in the industry. It's really an amazing program run by an amazing group of people here at Arcview. All of this is supported by our thought leadership, our digital programming, an example of which is our town hall today. In addition to the town hall series, our digital content also includes our broader Arcview Access events and our fireside chats themed to cover a variety of topics germane to these industries. And rounding out those digital events is our CEO Circle, our Tales from the Top, on which we get to hear the challenges endured by many great C-suite executives and battle-hardened entrepreneurs. And we'll also produce a number of live events and themed salon dinners and VIP dinners, so stay tuned for those details. Now, all of these events are made possible by our alliance partners. So let me take a moment to thank Zuber Lawler, who will be participating on today's webinar, Dwayne Morris, Green Growth CPA, Alpha Root, GrowFlow, Work, Ice Miller, and Waterton Partners. All right, before I pass this on to start today's program, let me just give you a quick glimpse of some upcoming events. I think our last program for 2021 is our webinar workshop with Green Tank, which will talk about the regulatory changes in and the general outlook for the vape market. And then we will resume in January with our WIN mentorship session on Monday, January 10th, and on Tuesday, January 13th, our much anticipated California Town Hall. So please check your email for information about these and other upcoming programs. All right, let's move on with the program, and it's a good one. New Jersey is coming hard and fast, but speed and purpose creates challenges. So today, our events team and moderator Jeanne Sullivan have put together a great panel to talk about the details of the New Jersey program. So let's learn about it together. So with that, let me introduce you to our moderator, the CEO of Arcview Ventures and one of the most popular figures in the cannabis industry, the knowledgeable and energetic Jeanne Sullivan. Take it away, Jeanne.
Thank you, Jeff. Aren't you kind? Hello, everyone. Now, I can get away with saying this because we raised our kids in Maplewood, New Jersey, a very diverse, charming little town, 20 miles west of New York City. I did move in many years ago to Manhattan, but boy, are we excited about the East Coast wave, which is now rolling towards us. I think some of the early waves have arrived already. And that's part of the fun because people kind of chuckle when you talk about New Jersey, but no one's laughing anymore. And that's because New Jersey has advanced the ball. There was a big competition. Hey, is New York going to beat them or not? That has not happened because New Jersey did not only create their statute, Governor Murphy ran on that platform. He made that happen this past year, 2021. And then the regs got written. Enough was done that you're going to hear some interesting things you may not know about what's happening there because the applications, well, I'll save some of that. So first, we're really thrilled to welcome to the stage Kelly Bernatza Hall, who is an executive with Hoodie Analytics. Now, Hoodie is a newcomer to the data analytics field, although the team that has built this platform are far from new to data and data analytics. It's pretty interesting. And Kelly is here today as a seasoned data scientist to give us the facts and the statistics about what is going on in the Garden State. And by the way, I love to share this. In the statute for New Jersey, they did not include home grow in the Garden State, but New York State did include it in the statute. So when we get to some of our experts on New Jersey, you better talk to us about that one. So Kelly, talk to us. First, introduce yourself. Tell us about both your cannabis journey and your data scientist background, and then we want you to share some of the data. So talk to us.
Absolutely. Thank you very much for having me. I'm very happy to be here and talk about New Jersey. So as Jeanne said, I'm Kelly Bernatza Hall. I'm the Senior Vice President of Customer Success here at Hoodie Analytics. It's been over 17 years now in the analytics and insights space. Way back when I started in CPG, but I've been in cannabis now for a number of years, consulting with some of the largest MSOs to help them make sense of their own data. And of course, now I'm with Hoodie Analytics, where we can actually go one step further and take a look at what's going on in the marketplace as well. So I'll give you a quick overview about what Hoodie Analytics is all about. Hoodie really provides the current assortment, stocking status, pricing, promotion information that you need for the marketplace that you care about. Every product, every dispensary, every state, every day. We believe firmly that having better data, up-to-date data, allows you to make better decisions on your day-to-day business life. We're not the only ones providing a look at markets, but we are the only ones right now that can provide you data as current as yesterday. So you can really get up-to-date information about what's going on in the geographies in the marketplace, places that you care about. The data itself, as powerful as it is, wouldn't be powerful enough without having a suite of services that you guys can easily tap into. We have a competitive intelligence, wholesale management platform and suite, dashboards that you can get into to figure out where you're out of stock, look at your competitive advantage in terms of assortment, mix, pricing, promotions, figure out how you stack from a leaderboard perspective against brands in your state, items that might be rising to the top. We also have a mobile app coming soon with that type of information as well. And on the flip side, we also have a store and product locator used by brands and MSOs to really allow their customers to find their products quickly and easily without having to search a bunch of menus and kind of poke around the different stores to find the products that they really care about and really want to use. So we're not here to talk about Hoodie Analytics. We're here to talk about New Jersey. So what we did is we went into all the great data that we've got and pulled out some key information around what's going on currently in the New Jersey market. And I want to share that with you right now. So looking at New Jersey market stats, projected adult use sales, $2 billion and counting. Certainly other states that have gone to adult use has seen that type of that type of performance in the first year and more. So it's definitely an incredible opportunity for New Jersey. Currently, though, the number of dispensaries is about 23 licensed dispensaries in the medical side. Lots of opportunity there. Hopefully we will talk about later today around that process for licensing for adult use. The average number of stores, or average number of products in stores for each dispensary is around 182. And the average price per eighth of flower is around $50. Now you can see some of these charts up here. They have, we are seeing some growth in distribution from flower, from vapes, some other smaller categories as well. Some of the top brands in the state, Curaleaf, Kind Tree, Verano, from a distribution perspective. And interestingly, looking at promotions back in the month of November, you can see on the green line here that generally speaking, there was a relatively consistent level of stores with promotions throughout the month. But as you would expect to see around the Thanksgiving holiday, the average amount of the number of products in the stores, of course, increased on promotions, everyone trying to get in on the deals for the Thanksgiving holiday. Now, when we think about New Jersey, think about adult use, one of the things we took a quick look at is just looking at the current assortment mix and comparing New Jersey to some of the other states in the Northeast and Mid-Atlantic regions. And you can see here, of course, flower is king, as it is pretty much everywhere, as followed by vape. Again, that's very consistent as well, regardless if it's medical or adult use. But a couple key facts wanted to pull out here around edibles and concentrates in particular, very much in line on the edibles front with medical. But as other states have started to offer adult use, you can see that the amount of assortments offered in stores around the edible space really does increase quite a bit. And something, as we're all thinking about adult use, what does that mean? How do we prepare for it? There's lots of things to prepare for. Obviously, having the assortment that's going to meet the needs of all consumers, all customers is going to be crucial. And edibles is one of those entry points for many that are exploring for the very first time, because it feels a little bit more approachable. It's usually a friendlier price point as well for those that may be exploring for the very first time. But that's not all, of course. Assortment mix matters. It's all going to come down to that, plus the supply that can meet the demand that you would expect to see. And that includes making sure that the supply side as well is prepared for the increase in demand that we have seen repeatedly in every state that has opened up to adult use. Other things I'll just note to talk about very quickly before turning over to the meat of the presentation today are some other topics and ideas to think about here. As adult use opens up, we talked a little bit about assortment. Pricing will be impacted as well. Both a combination of having the right pricing mix to attract those who may be new to the category, to have a friendlier price point for people to come in and explore, as well as making sure that the price matches the supply and the demand that exists in that marketplace. And the other thing, of course, to think about, especially being New Jersey and where you're located, it's not just going to be about the residents in state of New Jersey. There should be an expectation that a sizable amount of your revenue might be coming from out-of-state visitors as well. So for example, in Illinois, where I'm from, when Illinois had opened up to adult use, there was a significant amount of influx of visitors, tourists, what have you, that came and continued to come and purchase within our state. And as perspective, it's estimated around 30% of our revenue is coming from out-of-state residents. So again, in New Jersey, could be also something else interesting to think about as you approach adult use. So with that, without further ado, I want to turn it over to the great panel that we've got. I'm happy to reach out and talk with any of you if you have any questions about Hoodie or how we can address your questions, whether that's in New York, New Jersey, or in any of the states that we cover. My email is here at kelly@hoodieanalytics.com. But with that, I will turn it over back to you, Jeanne.
Thank you so much, Kelly. Oh, it's so interesting, especially that you have that level of detail. Now, look, I made a little joke about New Jersey, but it's really New Jersey who has the last laugh on New York. You know why? You just saw data on flower, concentrates, edibles. 2014 is when New York State implemented their medical program. No flower, no edibles. I like to say no nothing. Go figure. But New Jersey, being a medical state, and contiguous to New York, so guess what? We know how to find our way to New Jersey, has had this array of products, building some brands, making revenue from those kinds of diverse set of products. So, it's really, well, we can hardly wait to really grow these programs on the East Coast. So that's pretty exciting. So we like to put up a survey right now, although it's early in our program, to say, what do you want to hear? What do you want to talk about? What do you want us to bring to the table? So either feel free to fill this out right now or shove it off to the side and do it later. And because it's important for us to serve you. All right, now I welcome to the stage our very smart, capable, and knowledgeable team, Jeff Zuber, who's one of the co-founders with his brother Tom of Zuber Lawler Firm, Ed DeVoe, president of the New Jersey Cannabis Business Association, very important to all this, these new applications and more, and Deshita Dawson, someone you have met before through us, who is Chief Strategist Officer of the Cannabis Health Equity Movement. And we also call her the Weed Head. So welcome, Deshita. All right, welcome all of you. We so appreciate the time and energy to join us. All right, let's start with really calibrating what the heck is going on in New Jersey right now. Ed, I'm turning to you first because announce for us what is happening, the number of licenses that we have, the numbers that were just announced, both cultivators and dispensaries, so people understand what's what, and then we'll take it into the future of what could be. Talk to us. First, well, you know what? I kind of screwed up here. Usually I have everyone introduce themselves quickly. Let's do that first. Jeff, announce yourself, who you are. We'll go to Ed and then Deshita, then we'll go back to Ed. So go ahead, introduce yourself.
Hello, I'm Jeff Zuber. I was born and raised in New Jersey, did my undergrad at Rutgers in New Brunswick, clerked for a judge, a presiding criminal judge, Judge Coleman in Somerset County, worked for a boutique law firm in Summit, New Jersey, before eventually leaving for Los Angeles, where I am currently based. We started our law firm in 2003, have several attorneys that are still barred in New Jersey and New York, and we still maintain an office in New York, and we are very, very heavily involved in the cannabis industry. And we do complete legal services. We have the deal guys, and we have the litigation people like me that have litigated a number of cannabis industry disputes and probably have handled the most and gotten the biggest results in this industry.
And tell us about the New Jersey Cannabis Business Association.
Sure. Thanks, Jeanne. Thanks, everyone, for being here. I'm Edmund DeVoe. I'm the president of the New Jersey Cannabis Business Association. We are the state's first and largest trade association that was founded to help the state develop a responsible, sustainable, diverse, and profitable cannabis industry. We were working with the legislature since our inception, and since they were started, the Cannabis Regulatory Commission, or CRC, we have been a resource for regulators, legislators, and now more importantly, we are a resource for municipalities who have a very big role in the development of the adult use and expanded medical cannabis market.
That's great. Thank you for that. Deshita, welcome back.
Thank you for having me back. Again, my name is Deshita Dawson, and as Jeanne said, I'm also known as the Weed Head. I'm Brooklyn born, but Jersey educated. I did my undergraduate at Princeton University and then my MBA at Rutgers. And so I'm very deeply involved in the New Jersey legalization movement, at least the last 5 years. I've spent most of my career through a normal trajectory, being a senior executive at Target and Victoria's Secret. But if you know my story, you know I'm from Target. I went from target the THC and have been a strategy and management consultant for a number of large MSOs, municipalities, as well as Native American tribes. I recently transitioned to the public sector where I'm a regulator, and I also work to put together public-private partnerships that improve the ecosystem and better the chance for equity and for the legacy market to be integrated. And I do that through the Cannabis Health Equity Movement, which I've co-founded with Dr. Rachel Knox. And I'm excited to be here because New Jersey is finally moving.
Yes, certainly it is. And wow, what a great background all of you have. So interesting. Let's share that deep wisdom and insight with our fabulous attendees today. Back to you, Ed. What the heck's going on? Tell us what happened, what just happened, then we'll get into the future.
Well, before I get into the nitty gritty, Jeanne, you know, you and I have been joking about this. When it comes to New York, New Jersey, this is truly the instance where the tortoise beat the hare. We are really thrilled that New Jersey did, in fact, step up in the way that it did. But let's look at how it all transpired. Go back to 4 years ago, almost 5 years ago, when then candidate Murphy ran on a platform of millionaires tax, cannabis, and state bank. He never wavered from the cannabis issue or any of his top priorities. He gets elected, and what was supposed to be the first 100 days of his administration turned into the first 1,000 days before we saw any movement, any real movement in the cannabis space. And ultimately, the legislature punted to the voting public. And the voting public in November of 2020 changed the state's constitution by vote overwhelmingly 2-1, changed the state's constitution to legalize cannabis for adult use. After that, the legislature did get into gear, and they did in fact create legislation. They helped create the CRC. And in that shorter amount of time, where it took 4 years to get us to legalization, the CRC did an outstanding job of helping get regulation in place actually 2 days before their deadline. And gee, go figure, in government, somebody actually got something done ahead of their deadline. And they created and published regulation. Now, look, I've been in public policy all of my career, from being a commissioned officer in the Army through my civilian life. I've always been in public policy. And I can tell you, there's no such thing as perfect public policy. So when we look at some of the questions that people have about, well, what the heck is Jersey doing? Everything from the lack of home grow. And I can tell you, home grow is not in the cards this year. It's not going to happen during lame duck. It's maybe a year or two off. And why is that? It's because New Jersey has a not political, but certainly a social conservative streak. We've had a medical cannabis program for 11 years, but it did not move very much. It was because of that bit of social and fiscal conservatism. People have questioned, well, what happened with the edibles regulation? Why no brownies? I can tell you that the decision was made to have clinical as opposed to culinary. And the reason why is because they did not want to scare the adult public that had questions and still continue to have questions about cannabis. They didn't want them saddled with the notion that kids are going to be attracted to cannabis because things will resemble gummy bears. They didn't want people to panic because edibles would mimic brownies and other delicious things. So we opted for clinical over culinary. But essentially, when you look at what we have accomplished, we do, in fact, lead the nation with respect to how we addressed social equity, social justice, economic parity. We created micro licenses as a category, which lowers the bar to entry into the cannabis space. We did, in fact, create tiers where people could come into the cannabis industry at various points. we created a system, and the CRC very boldly in its very first public meeting said, we are going to give priority to minority, women, and veteran license applicants. So we're moving in the right direction. No such thing as perfect public policy, but we are here as the association to help us get along.
Well, thank you for that. That's so interesting. It's hard, it's complicated, isn't it? All right, so now let's go to the goods. Go ahead and explain to us how many of each, this recent announcement that happened Tuesday late, 30 more dispensaries, then the recent announcement before that of 14 more licenses, including 4 vertical licenses. Talk to us about what's there now, and then we'll go into the future.
So what we have now, and it does seem confusing, Jeanne, we had a 2019 round of applications. That 2019 round of applications sat in court essentially for 2 years. For 2 years, we waited to hear about the results of the 2019 round. We are just hearing over the last couple of months what the decisions were. We awarded 14 licenses, which were vertical and cultivation licenses. Just a day or two ago, we heard about dispensaries, 30 dispensaries, when the original number was actually supposed to be 15. They doubled the number of dispensaries,
Yes.
seeing the need. So we did, in fact, get off of the 2019 dime. And so what we've done is we've undercut the cap on cultivation somewhat. There is a cap. There's a cap of 37 cultivation facilities, which is now inclusive of 2019. That's our understanding. I'm sure that will be argued in court. But we are seeing what essentially is the heart of New Jersey's market today. And these are operations that cater to the medical community. The medical community, first and foremost, 11 years in the making. And so there is a commitment before even the current license holders can switch to adult use. And I'm sure they'll be talking to Hoodie. They must demonstrate that they have enough product and that there will be no more questions of quantity or quality before they move into the adult use space.
Interesting. Now, something else that's very quirky and very state to state, you have an opt-in for New Jersey towns and municipalities. Talk to us about that. Who's in, who's out? And by the way, just to make the conversation even more complex, New York has an opt-out. So our cities and towns have to opt out by the end of this year, December 31st. Your towns have to opt in. Is there a deadline for that? And how do we know who's in and who's out so we can go for a license?
That's a great question, Jeanne. So in developing the legislation, municipalities were given a lot more leeway, a lot more authority in terms of helping regulate the cannabis industry in New Jersey. Things essentially, if you are applying for a license, you must have in your possession a resolution from a community. This does away with an argument that occurred going back to 2018 and 2019. There was a lawsuit that resulted because the old regulation, the old wording was you had to demonstrate community support. Well, people applied with letters from, just as making this up, a Boys and Girls Club saying, well, I got community support. And the towns did not support the application. So they made it very clear going forward, and municipalities must, in fact, give you a resolution before application. Now, a little bit about the opt-in, opt-out process. So towns were given a deadline to opt in or opt out or do nothing with respect to the cannabis market. And so what occurred, and I'm using rough numbers because specifically there's 565 municipalities in the state of New Jersey. So roughly speaking, 100 opted in, 500 opted out. And you can find that information on the New Jersey Cannabis website.
Thank
We
you.
did
Good
publish
work,
it.
Ed.
And in fact, you should think about being a member. And we also have that information through New Jersey Cannabis Insider, which is a subsidiary of NJ.com, a news agency, and they publish that information as well. So 100 opted in, 500 opted out. And in terms of opting in terms of the 6 licensing categories, so there's cultivation, processing, warehouse and distribution, transportation or home delivery, dispensary, and dispensary with on-site consumption. Towns did not have to opt in for all 6 of the categories. Some opted in for dispensaries or retail, some opted in for cultivation, some opted in for 3 out of the 6, and so on. So as if you're a potential applicant, you really do have to know that community and know what it is that they are allowing to occur within their borders.
That's so important that you shared that. And hey, good for you for honing in on the opt-in set of municipalities and towns. But I'm shocked to hear 500 did not opt in. Now, this is surprising. Why is that? With wealth, opportunity, wellness, job creation, why is that? Do you have a theory or thought about it?
Sure. Well, given that there was a timeline, so not only did the CRC have a timeline, they were given 180 days from inception, essentially, to draft regulation. Municipalities had the same 180 days to determine if they were opting in or opting out. Now, most municipalities opted out for 2 reasons. One is they didn't know what the regulations were. So they opted out, waiting to see what the regulations were going to be. And number 2, you can opt back in, and you can opt in at any time. So if you're a municipal leader, it was probably wise on your part to say, I'll opt out for now. I will learn more about the industry, learn more about the regs. And then this way, when I do opt in, I will do so as an educated consumer.
That's fascinating. So I was going to save this, but I think it's really critical information to get out to our audience right now. And if you don't know this, you might find this a little surprising. I know I did when I learned this. December 15th, what's the magic of that date? And let's go ahead and tell people what's going on. So speak to that. Then I'll go to you, Deshita, and we'll talk more about social equity and those licenses and the tiers. But let's talk about December 15th and March 15th.
So the CRC, the Cannabis Regulatory Commission, decided to go to an automated application system. In doing so, what they've done is they have begun to separate application processes or the types of applications that they would receive. So on December 15th, the application portals will open for cultivation, processing, and lab testing. So I saw there was a question in the Q&A about labs and what this all means, but essentially on December 15th, if you are interested and have municipal support, you can begin this process of applying for licenses. And so December 15th, that portal opens. If you're interested in retail, that portal, according to the CRC, is going to open on March 15th of 2022. So the portals, we're looking forward to them opening. Compared to the old way of doing things, this is an automated process. You won't need the thousands of pages, the volumes that you needed under the old medical marijuana program. So this is, look, it's automated. It's supposed to fast track. Again, if you are a minority woman, disabled veteran, your license gets to the front of the line. No guarantees, but at least you are a priority in the state of New Jersey.
Thank you so much for that. Now, we at Arcview, we really aim to be on the razor's edge of the knowledge and when you take action and when you don't, and what do you need to know. But here's what our audience does need to know. Because the regulations were so clear about what needs to be in the application, many friends, colleagues, and people I know have already written their application to submit on December 15th. Now don't panic, everyone. That doesn't mean it's over. As you pointed out, it is going to be a rolling situation. And now this is a perfect place to go to you, Deshita, to talk about again, what if you're a social equity applicant? What does that mean? How does that put you toward the front of the stack, so to speak? Talk to us about that opportunity and what's going on. And by the way, pick up from my words, if you're planning on a dispensary license for March 15th, well, we'll get to what do you have to do now, but you need to start now thinking about that. And there's enough data to write that application, not submit it yet till then. So just so you know that. Deshita, talk to us about social equity. How does that play? Again, these tiers, clarify that for us.
Sure. Thank you so much. And Ed provided a wealth of information. What I will say is, just as a reminder, this is a portal opening. It is different from the RFPs of the past where it's a deadline, right? And so that's one of the things I've been hearing as misinformation among the chatter in the cannabis community, or those who are interested, that this is the December 15th deadline. It isn't a deadline. It is the first look at the actual application. And to your point, there are a lot of parts of the actual cream law that you can, identify what you should be preparing. But I don't want people who feel they haven't hired a consultant to feel as if they're at a disadvantage, because one thing that New Jersey CRC has done, which is innovative, is they've created an equity matrix. An equity matrix that allows them to identify, now that it's automated and it's technology driven, identify a prioritization from 1A to 10B. And that prioritization is based on what they've kind of designated as priority applications. And there are three specific ones. We talk about the diversity owned. That means you are certified, minority owned, women owned, veteran owned, and there's an office specifically for that to promote participation. But they also added a social equity designation that is to identify people living in economically disadvantaged areas, again, defined by CRC as your zip code. And I'll talk about the difference between that and impact zone, but also a social equity designation is if you have a prior conviction or arrest, if you've directly been impacted by cannabis criminalization. The third is what we knew before because it was in the statute, and that's the impact zones, and that's by municipality. And that was dictated again in the statute. And with this matrix of these three priority designations, they're able to continually on a rolling basis as applications come in, prioritize to the top, starting with the social equity designation, then the disadvantaged owners, and then impact zone by conditional micro business, conditional full business, or just a regular conversion. And so it truly is a matrix that I would say don't even bother your head to try to figure out. Just know that you want to make sure that you are including in your application all the ways that you can prove what your priority designation should be. Also important to point out is if you have multiple, like I would qualify for multiple personally, if you have multiple, it would pick your highest priority, and that's where you're slotted into the review. And again, that's a review, meaning it's assigned to someone to look at, let you know if your application is actually complete, and then a scoring process afterwards. There's no, other than the cultivation cap of 37 to 2023, which is actually only 14 months away, so it's moving fast, there is no cap. It is a rolling process. And I would say, Ed alluded to this, where we're going to see the bottleneck in equity is not at the state level, but potentially at the municipal level, because a lot of the municipalities have decisions to make themselves on how they're going to prioritize support, prioritize getting resolutions, particularly when you have more than 70% opting out. It's a problem at this point.
Wow. Now, let's say it's January 15th you finally have your act together, you've pulled things together in an application, you're a social equity applicant, you've followed your advice on understanding, how to play this. Hopefully, you've gotten good guidance from seasoned professionals, and I think that's a critical element. Is it too late, or do you feel like there's still a chance? And how long do you think that window will be open for someone?
We can't guess on the window, but when someone says rolling admissions, I am trying to get in my best application as soon as possible. I don't recommend people rushing in and putting something forward that is not their best foot forward on December 15th. I also want to call out the conditional license provisions allows you to do a lot of submission and get that conditional license without having real estate yet, without having the municipal support yet. You then have 120 days or 4 months essentially to get that done. And so I recommend, if you're looking at a priority designation, if you're in the legacy market and you're looking to transition, that conditional license at the micro business level is only $100. It is going to be a lot simpler than the full license, and it also is going to be prioritized. So I recommend looking at what can you do now with the resources that you have. That's what makes, I think, New Jersey a very interesting case for equity designation. We haven't seen it to this level of prioritization or like a matrix. Massachusetts has some things that you can check off, and they're multiple. It's like you have 3 of 6, but in this case, you can put all of those things, and the system is designed to prioritize based on your highest level priority designation.
Oh, thank you for that. That's so interesting. So in preparation for today, I went to the CRC, and sure enough, this fee schedule and a delineation of all those licenses is listed there. And Ed, I'm sure you have a lot of information on your site too. So I encourage everyone to join as a member. I think it's critical to stay in the know. Now, Deshita, I'm fascinated. I'm thrilled that social equity applicants are finally going to have a chance. But how do we both educate each other? How do we finance these companies? Is there any opportunity for some public-private partnerships on financing? What are you thinking there?
Most definitely. I mean, I've seen that we've, been more battling each other and or putting together, combinations that can be very predatory. I would say that the CRC has made mention to the fact that they are looking to figure out how to get people who were directly impacted by cannabis criminalization participating in the legacy market, likely as a consumer, since possession is the large majority of the arrests. But showing that that background and getting it integrated will come from education and programming. I actually pointed out that there was going to be a minority disabled vet and women's cannabis business office. They just announced the executive director, and there is now a new website up. This office is in charge of promotion, yes, of the programming, getting people to participate, but also having a budget to provide programming to get more minority women business owners in the door to, I think, in my opinion, also ensure that the legacy market is transitioning in to the adult use market, because we learn from other mature markets on the West Coast, especially, that if you don't do that, you're going to have competing markets that people aren't going to want to transition. And so New Jersey is going to have to be very focused as well as targeted in ensuring that those groups are educated. And so I feel like that office will offer programming. And I think, let's be honest, there's very few regulatory offices that have a lot of cannabis competency. You might understand administration in the government, but you don't understand what I call weed market dynamics. So my hope and my recommendation has been to the CRC that they commission in the private sector organizations that have already been doing that community education. I like to shout out Cannabis, because I just did an event at Rutgers University, a free event this past weekend that was a legacy to legal event. And it's those type of events and those type of organizations that are already doing the work that, in my opinion, should be who the government partners with to ensure they're reaching the target group that will actually be able to fill these seats. And these percentages, right? 25% impact zone, 10% micro business. These are goals that were set out in the statute that in the prioritization, CRC will have to also be taking that into account as they are scoring.
Wow, just a treasure trove of information. So great. I welcome you. If you want people to reach you or to read things that you're writing or become a member, go ahead and put your email in the chat because we want our people to get, the best possible opportunity. Now, Jeff Zuber, you have litigated and are barred in New Jersey, New York, California. You have litigated contracts and cannabis issues in these states. Talk to us. What should future license owners be thinking about so they can protect IP, protect the deals that they're making, protect what they're doing in these contracts? Talk to us about some of these issues and what people need to be thinking about.
Thank you, Jeanne. It is incredibly important. Protecting IP and securing precision deal documents is crucial to the business's long-term success. And the important thing is waiting to address these issues is a recipe for disaster. And I don't like talking in the negative because I think there's something very positive about building these things and making these investments. And when you realize what a little investment it is at the beginning and what the big payoffs are at the end, it's actually something that's very exciting and not something to be scared of. But that's why you really want to jump on board early. With regard to intellectual property in a budding cannabis business, we're usually talking about patents, trade secrets, and trademarks. Copyrights can be relevant, but not so often. In my experience, it's those other big three that you're looking to protect. And virtually all the biggest, most profitable businesses in every industry today count IP as their most valuable assets, and cannabis will be no different. You need to address this. If you do not take decisive action to protect your IP interests from the outset, you may lose them. You may end up litigating over these issues that you should have buttoned up in the beginning. And believe me, paying a litigator like myself is going to be much more expensive and much more painful than talking to some of our deal attorneys at the get-go. And think about that. You could have the best product in the world, but if you didn't patent any proprietary formulas or protect them as trade secrets, your competitors will be using them rent-free, meaning no royalties to you. So don't let your passion and your hard work go straight to your competitors' benefit. You need to protect those things so that you can use them and get the results and the rewards that you're entitled to from doing that. You also need to establish a great distinctive brand worthy of your amazing product. And with it comes responsibilities such as registration, which can be very tricky at the federal level, and policing. And registration of cannabis trademarks is very tricky at the federal level because registering a trademark requires use of that mark on the designated goods and or services in commerce. And it's still currently federally illegal to trade in cannabis, which is why they don't allow that registration. But it doesn't mean that there's nothing you can do. And we've actually pioneered some strategies for doing just that. And we've managed to do it in a way that there is virtually no chance that you will be cited for fraud on the USPTO because we disclose it. It's part of our strategy for doing it. We disclose to the USPTO our client deals in cannabis, but the trademark will not attach to anything, any products or services dealing with cannabis. And because we do that, very often we get dinged. We file these registrations and they say, no, it happens all the time. And then our trademark prosecutors get on the phone with the examiners and explain what we're doing, why we're doing it, and how it comports with federal law. And every time we win those arguments and our registrations get through. So it's something you can do. If you're hearing people saying that you can't do and nothing can happen in that regard, I can tell you, you need to talk to a legal specialist, and they will tell you that there are strategies that you can enact now that will help protect you in the future, that will help you protect the goodwill in the amazing product that you're making so that your competitors cannot leech off it.
I was just going to press on that, Jeff, and say, in your experience, what are some of the smart things you've seen some license holders do to avoid ending up in court or arbitration on these things? Talk to us about some of the best practices that you
best practices, that deals with the trademark strategies that we talked about. Also realizing you can get a patent And that's important. If you don't get a patent right away, you may lose the right to do it. If you don't protect your trade secrets right away, that you may lose your right to do it. And that's some of the smartest things that you can do right now, starting a new business, is make sure that you address these things right away. If you let a trade secret out, if you don't protect it, like some of the smarter clients of ours have done, then what happens is you can't do, once it's public, you can't do anything. You can't unring that bell. So you have to do it right away with proper NDAs, compartmentalization of information, doing those reasonable things necessary to protect your trade secrets. Patents, you can get it because patents don't require use in commerce. So the USPTO will actually grant your patent for a cannabis plant. Our attorney, Dr. Stefan Kurchansky, got the second ever cannabis patent in the USPTO. It's the blueprint for how all of them are filing these things now. He's a botanist, which is unusual in the legal industry. And it's unusual that I've been doing patent litigation for a while, and I didn't even realize plants were its own separate issue. I dealt with utility patents, almost exclusively utility patents in my practice, didn't even come up. And it's this whole separate area, but it is fascinating, the legal scheme and how everything works here. But you can get the patent, and you should do it. Another thing that you have to do is you cannot rely on cookie cutter contracts, some form you found, something that your friend who means well gives you a document that worked for his business, maybe worked for his business. Who knows? Sometimes you don't realize it until you litigate it, but gives you a document and you use it for your business. It can lead to a whole host of problems with regard to these contracts. You need a deal attorney who is well seasoned, who actually sits down with you, talks about your priorities, what you're trying to accomplish. One of the easiest things is, of course, it relates back to what we just talked about, IP. If there are trade secrets and you have a deal with someone and you're exposing them to your trade secrets, you have to have a good deal in place that says that they are going to protect those trade secrets as well, only use them to the extent that they need to perform their services under the deal, and that anyone who touches these things also signs an NDA. You need to have that set up right away. But there are certain clauses, one of my favorites to talk about, because it's a boilerplate clause that everyone puts in there. And they don't really have a discussion with an attorney that has dealt with these things and expressed their priorities to understand whether or not they want an attorney's fees clause in there in the first place. And some of the two major issues that usually come up with attorney's fees clauses is who's more likely to breach. If you're more likely to breach, do not encourage your client to put those in there. Very often you'll see them in there anyway, and this taking it out can be very tricky. But another reason, which is something you can address and can talk about more openly, is the other side even capable of paying a judgment? Very often when you have these new businesses in any industry, but especially in cannabis, you have young, growing businesses, and very often they wouldn't be able to pay a significant attorney's fees award in the first place. So what you're effectively doing from a legal standpoint, you have a two-way attorney's fees clause, which is in California, it's forced to be two ways. You can't have one way. But you're effectively making a one-way attorney's fees clause because your client can pay it, but the other side can't. You're encouraging attorneys on the other side to take a contingency case if they end up being the plaintiff. You don't want to put those things in blindly. You want to look at the relationship between the parties. So something as universal as I've seen in my experience as attorney's fees clause, you really have to hire a good deal person and talk about your priorities and the relationship between the parties before you just plug in something that you think is boilerplate, but you should have realized from the get-go that you should not have in there.
You know what I noticed? We're talking about a lot about IP and that sort of thing, but the biggest issues I've seen, and this is many years of dealing with teams and investment, is the relationship among the parties, the team, the founders. I see a lot of litigation there, problems. Teams break apart. They're mad at each other. They never did figure out in the beginning how they were going to, let's say, handle the equity or the ownership issues. So I see a lot of team issues too, that you better do that right. I will tell you, the smartest people I know and the most successful have surrounded themselves with smart guidance to get them there. So let's go back to that, both Ed and Deshita. Now let's say there's opportunities here now for New Jersey to apply for a variety of cultivation licenses and other licenses, manufacturing, as we talked, testing, and then in March for the dispensary. What should these people in license pursuit be doing now to get ready? Talk to us about that, either or both of you. Jump in there. Ed's saying you go first, Deshita.
Oh, I'm sorry. I was going to give it to Ed because I know he's probably got a couple of members who are working through it. But can I be honest? I would say familiarize yourself with the CRC website. It's just newjersey.gov/cannabis. I legit have things just bookmarked. It is the site that I'm on regularly. They also provide a number of webinars that we've seen in the chat that you can go back and watch, and it will outline the things that you need to prepare. A lot of people think that or assume based on the previous history, and I have a reason to believe that too, that it's going to be a very complicated thing. But I think the very easy part is to pull your historical tax statements. They actually have 10 ways to prepare. You want to develop a business plan, of course. You need to know which legal business structure you're going to have. You can get a license as a partnership, an LLC, corporation, or S Corp. Getting your EIN, doing the business basics, registering your business. If you're going to be MWBE, you also need to register or get certified for that, especially if you want to get that priority designation. There are banks in New Jersey that will open up an account for intended cannabis businesses. And of course, you want to look for insurance products that are available in New Jersey. Is also one of the fortunate states that has more options as well. So I'm going to drop the link for these 10 ways to prepare because I do think that it points people in the right direction in terms of the minimum things you will need to do.
Thank you. That's great. So important. Ed, over to you. Talk to us.
So look, from a business standpoint, Deshita's absolutely right. Get the business basics in first. And also, because municipalities have such a heavy hand in what's going on, find out which towns have opted in, get to know those towns. If you're not from New Jersey, then you really do need to partner with someone from New Jersey. Look, the CRC has made their priorities very clear. Minorities, women, disabled veterans, and New Jersey businesses. We had to stand up the market with multi-state operators going back 11 years ago. The wealth of knowledge was just not organic to the state. It had to be imported. Now you have knowledge in the state. So find people in the state. If you're not from New Jersey, look, all roads lead to Jersey anyway. So there's no reason why you can't find someone, work with them, join this association, get to know others that are out there that are providing professional guidance. In fact, next Friday, we're hosting a business webinar. Every Friday, or most every Friday, the association hosts something called Lunch and Learn. And it's industry professionals that actually talk about what it is you need to do, either running your business or to prepare for your business. So these are all the things. We want people to succeed. We want people to succeed. And getting into the municipal ground floor is going to be critical as well.
Thank you, Ed. Put your URL in the chat so people can find you, can go to those wonderful events you're doing. Thank you. Thank you so much. Kelly from Hoodie and your team who prepared for today. Thank you for your effort, your work, your energy today. Thank you, Jeff Zuber, for that insight about what to do, to think about, so you don't end up in court. We don't want to do that. Deshita, Ed, wonderful work. Jeff, thank you for hosting this. Our last webinar of the year is coming up. It's December 14th, which is next week, 2 p.m. Pacific, 5 p.m. Eastern, and it's on the vape workshop with Green Tank. So join us to learn more about this. And then our team is heading to NCIA, which is also combined with New West Summit in San Francisco. It's December 17th. We're moderating a panel on gender equity, so be sure to come by and say hi. And then we're just wishing you the best as we close out this year and head into a pretty exciting, robust 2022. I thank you all for joining us. Please stay tuned in. Look at our website for all our events, and we welcome you to join us. Thank you all so much.